Welcome to the Multifamily Zone, where business meets family. We explore what the entrepreneur life looks like from the family perspective. Now, here are your hosts, Julia and Gino Barbaro.
Hey everyone, this is Julia Barbaro, host of the Multifamily Zone podcast. I'm here with the co-founder of Jake and Gino, my husband and co-host, Gino Barbaro.
Hi, Julia.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good.
So how do we come up with a topic for today's podcast?
A lot of sitting around and thinking.
At least we're not drinking, right?
That's true. That's true.
We're sitting, thinking, and not drinking. This topic to me, believe it or not, is near and dear to my heart because I've been doing podcasts for years and I've been trying to connect with so many people and I've been trying to connect with my other presentations. And I thought just giving value and giving statistics and telling people was the way to move people and to captivate people and just to connect with people. And it dawned on me, one of my best presentations wasn't really about multifamily at all. And it was really weird. It was my story. And I'm like, really? My story? And I know a lot of you out there are like, no one wants to hear my story. And we all feel that way. But I'm here to tell everybody, we all have a unique and amazing story. And in this podcast, we're going to try to lay some type of framework on how you can create your own story, the types of stories that you can use with your children. And I like to talk about business, so we're going to throw maybe some business stories in there. And really how important stories are and how we learn by stories and how we connect with others using stories.
Gino, you just said to how to create your story. And I think that's interesting because I know I always read into too much that you say. It's such an issue.
It just goes right over my head. She reads in and I don't see anything. So
the funny part about that kind of struck me was that your story was already made. You already made your story. It's already there. You know, it led you to right now. So that's there. We just have to remember it. And a lot of times we remember it and maybe we only remember the bad things and the struggles. And we choose not to remember the good parts for some reason. But it really takes some thought, some quiet and thought, and remember, you know, where we're coming from. We have to, you know, our life experiences brought us to where we are right now, and our life experience matters. So our story does matter, and so each one of us has that uniqueness. And all those life experiences are different for everyone. We've gone through some similar things, but what we have experienced are different for each one of us. You know, there's a lot of eye openers, which always makes a story more exciting. But you know, we learn from all our wins. You know, I'm sure you're going to talk about that, but we definitely learn from our failures, and they should be part of our story because that's what, you know, that's where we get our wisdom from. You know, our when we fall hard, that's where it's like, okay, people can relate because they're like, you know, we think, you know, a lot of people look at Gino as this super successful person, but he struggles. And that's what they need to hear. They need to know that he was, you know, out there trying different things and failing and trying again and being supportive of, you know, his family at the same time. So that's important for people to know.
So I'm going to describe it as if I'm speaking to a 5-year-old right now. Okay, I'm going to tease my wife here a little bit. I didn't mean the word create. It is created.
Okay, we're going to go back to that.
I have to go back to this because create is one thing. You have to actually work on it and you have to really put it together. And you have to continually write it down. And I'll give you the example of the story that Jake and I use for the founder story. And you have to continue to use and tell your story because there might be people out there that don't know, that haven't heard of it before. And when I go on a podcast, I always talk about the founder story, how we met, because it's important, that story for me. And it gives Jake and Gino the relevance of why would we start an education company and why would two people get together? And basically in the story, what you want to have attention. You want to capture and captivate the audience. So you want to have attention in the story. You want to have influence. You want to have the story have influence over the person. And I think the other one is you want to transform the audience. You want the audience to see how I started out and then I progressed and then I grew into this person. So I think those 3 elements you need in the story. So here it goes. The story in 2009, I'm sitting in the kitchen in the back. I'm cutting up zucchini. I've got chicken on the grill. I'm sauteing hot cherry peppers and zucchini, and I'm sweating, and I'm tired, and I'm on a Monday night when I should be home, but we're doing a cooking class, and in walks Jake. I had never met Jake before. And ironically enough, I'm cooking Jake's chicken. Now, Jake's chicken is a menu on is a food on our menu. It's a dish on our menu. Jake's chicken, grilled chicken with sauteed vegetables. And I'm like, I don't even have my own menu item named after me. There's nothing Gino's on the menu. And I'm like, who is this guy? So my brother introduces me to him, and we hit it off right away. I love the way Jake works. I see how he's so diligent. He's a pharmaceutical rep, so he does a lot of catering with us, and he's the only one who comes in with a calendar and is really respectful of my time. He tells me a week before that he needs the food so we can prepare. And, the relationship goes really well for about 18 months. He's still working. But I know as I speak to him, he's struggling like me. He doesn't like living in New York. He doesn't like the fact that he has a job and he has no control, and he wants to invest. And I'm like, this is perfect. This is what I want to do. So in 2011, one day he comes in the kitchen. He's like, Gino, I'm going down and moving to Knoxville. And I turn to him and I say, where's Knoxville? We're New Yorkers. We in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Once you leave the tri-state area, you get completely lost. So I go, okay, Jake, let me sit down. Let's pull out my computer and we'll go on LoopNet and look at a couple of deals. So we sit down, we look at a couple of deals, and I say to him, this is really, really enticing. This looks really good. We can actually find some deals down there. So get down there. And when he gets down there, he actually leaves by himself. Back then had his fiance, and she stayed in New York, and he went down there. And by trial and error, we just started calling brokers. We didn't know what we were doing, but I knew what I wanted. I had some mentorship, I had some coaching. It took us 18 months to find that first deal. Constant rejection. Y'all ain't going to do business down here. To crack in, we didn't have the credibility, but we stuck through it. We actually quit for a little bit because Jake went and bought a house. So he used some of his seed capital. So he couldn't continue. So he had to wait a few months to put more money together. But after that 18 months, we bought our first deal. And then after that first deal, 3 months later, we bought our second deal. And then after that second deal, it comes the third deal. And that's when we started writing the book, Wheelbarrow Profits. And that's when we got together. And that's when we created Jake and Gino. And that's how Jake and Gino was created, by a pizza guy and a drug rep just wanting a better life and getting control. Was it easy? No. But was it worth it? Absolutely.
I've heard that story many times. So I have to tell you, I zoned out for a minute.
No.
No, but it's important because there's a lot of people out there that are in different situation, but all those emotions are the same. All that frustration is the same. And just bringing that authentic you out, that you struggled, is so important and so powerful and gives people hope. My stories are so different than Gino's. I mean, they were just some people would be like, really, that was how you struggled? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm home, it's exhausting. I have little children, and I cannot see the future because I can't even imagine these little people as adults, because they're babies and they're little. And my days were endless. And it was complete despair. I mean, there was times where I'm like, this is never going to end. And there was a woman that came up to me one day. She saw me, and I had 5 children at the time. And I don't know what maybe I had a face on. I don't know what happened, but she came up to me. She held my hand and she said, listen, they will grow up. I promise you. She's like, I've been there and I understand and I see your struggle, but they will grow up, I promise. And I think about that now because that happens. My kids are a little bit older now that I can leave the house without a big issue. I came over on this podcast and it was just, Dad and I have something to do. We'll be right back. To me, that is like freedom. Like, I can't even explain to you, but I know there are people out there that like, I get it. I'm here at the same time. I understand where you're coming from. I promise you it will change and it will grow. Just embrace where you are right now, because that part of your life, that part of your story helps create the person you will be. helps create the mother you will be, and that's so important that we have to embrace where we are, the part of our life that we're in right now, because it's part of our story. And that's so important to bring on and share with other people and encourage other people just to bring that authentic you out.
So in that story that I used, that would be the founder story, right? You want to add connection to it. I'm connecting to people in the audience. I'm a business owner, so I'm probably going to connect with other business owners, small business owners wanting to get out of the rat race. I'm trying to connect with entrepreneurs. Now, there's a few things that you can do in your storytelling. The first thing is I try to slow down. I'm a really fast talker, and I try to slow down as much as possible. Not always the success, but I don't want to really be that slow where I completely change my energy and I change the way I'm delivering it.
You don't want to lose you, because
Yes.
that's you do speak fast, and a lot of us out there, we don't want to miss out on on your Gino,
Hmm.
the Gino in you.
I don't know what that means. That can
You
be
know what it
interpreted in
means.
so many ways. The next one is pause. Have some pauses. Make sure you look around. And if if you're presenting to an audience, look at all four quadrants. Try to pick somebody out and see as if you're speaking to that person, and just focus on that person. Then move to the other side of the audience and just keep talking if you're presenting, right? I think the next thing is try to say your story in the present. It has more effect if you're saying, I'm meeting Jake. It's 2009. And another thing that I learned from one of my mentors is use the word picture and imagine this, because our mind is made full of pictures. And it's funny, my wife is smiling because she heard me say this a lot of times. But when you say, picture this,
No, it's true.
I'm
It is
sitting in the
true. I
kitchen,
agree.
I'm sweating, it's
Yeah,
hot,
it keeps it real. Yeah.
I'm making this chicken, it's sauteing, I'm getting all that imagery and all that pictures, and that's where you're trying to connect. And I'm trying to connect with those entrepreneurs. And I know it's successful because I've had people come up to me after going, I feel exactly the same way you do. And you're trying to make that connection because our brains learn by stories. And that's where it's really important. That's the crux of why I wanted to put this together. Because if it's just about numbers, if it's just a PowerPoint presentation, it's not going to sink in. You need to add that story about you, and the story about the company, and the story about what's going on.
Well, someone wants to see the human in you. They want
Yes.
to see that part of you, that you are human, and that you are, you know what I mean? It's not all business, and that goes with everything. That goes with every relationship. They want to see the real you. And that's so important to, a lot of people see, like, someone on TV and they're like, wow, they have it all together, and you just see all the good in them. And they never let their guard down, which I think is a huge mistake, because that's just not real. So how can you look up to someone that doesn't show their true colors, that doesn't show their struggles, because that's part of them.
I agree. Let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsors.
Gino, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. I know that you've been hard at work helping Jake and Gino students do just that using our framework. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
Guys, we've been hard at work growing our community of like-minded investors, and the results of our members has been nothing short of incredible. We're looking to grow this amazing group. What we're looking for is those who want to follow our proprietary framework that we've created: buy right, manage right, and finance right. Leverage our connections, education, and mentorship as ways to take your business to the next level.
So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become a part of our amazing community, apply to work with us at jakeandgino.com/apply.
Now, Julia, the next story that I think we should really talk about is the purpose story. And for me, the purpose story means a lot, because everyone's always asking me, well, why do you want to start the education? What do you like about Jake and Gino? And for me, the purpose story is almost like finding my soul purpose. This is why I'm doing Jake and Gino. I love it. It's amazing to help other people. And I share the emails with my wife. And I think I've changed her life for my purpose story, because she went to coaching school after. And she was like, probably blah, blah, blah. What's he talking about? And I think you should share the story of when we went to New Jersey. You've probably told it once or twice, but really when it gleaned on you, like, wow, he's really helping people out. Remember that story?
Remind me.
Come on, it was Christmas time. It took us 2.5 hours to get to a meetup. It was only an hour.
Oh, that story.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that was, yeah. So I did make fun of him. And I think a lot of you know that. I used to make fun of him because he wanted to do life coaching, and I thought it was silly.
And now she's embraced it, right? So that's the purpose story. You can give this is my wife's purpose story. So this is a great story.
This is your purpose story?
This is your purpose story of, I think
it's
so about mine.
Let's clarify something. Okay. We have stories, and I want to be clear. It depends on the audience, because if I'm talking to another mother, my stories to them are going to be different than if it's a father, if it's another business person that you're talking to. And I think that's important to just remember things that really changed your life, and just they were eye-opening to you. And those stories are important to remember, because depending on who you're speaking to, do you know what I mean? You can't tell that story about a business to if a mother's talking to you. You know what I mean? So it's important to there's a lot of stories that we have, and I think it's important to remember them all, and to maybe even write them down and have them, so that when that situation comes, you can help that person. And with them seeing that they can relate to them and be like, you know what, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was there too. But the one that you're talking to, I think we talked about on the podcast before. It was the moment when my husband was speaking to a room full of people, and afterward, a couple of people came up to me and was just thanking me for sharing him, and how they changed his life and all that. And it really was an eye opener. And I tell it because we're so closed-minded a lot of the times, and we don't want to think outside the box. And it's important to listen to other people and say, wow, if my husband changed their life, I should probably pay attention and see what he's doing. Maybe I could be there. Maybe I can help him out. Maybe I could do what he's doing and help other people. And that's important.
So I have a couple of aha stories also. I think an aha story is really important to reflect back on what was that massive change in your life, right? There was a normal in your life that was going on, then that explosion, that aha moment that happened, and then the new normal, what happened afterwards. So for me, it was, we had about 200 units, Jake and I, and I'm still working at the restaurant. I'm still deciding I want to leave, but I don't know when I'm going to make the leap. And I wasn't sure of myself. I wasn't sure if I could do it. I wasn't sure if I had enough money coming in. I had a big family. Everyone's telling me you're crazy. It's too risky. You've got a great little job here. My mom's telling me you're lucky. Not everyone so many people hate their jobs, and you've got a nice little business here. So I've got it coming from everywhere. And then one day I'm sitting in my shed and I'm putting away all these to-go tins. I'm cleaning up the shed. I'm sweeping it. And I'm talking on the phone with Jake, and we're negotiating an $11 million deal. And I just said to myself at that point, that aha moment, I'm like, can you believe that I'm actually doing $10 an hour work and I'm negotiating an $11 million real estate deal here? And that was my aha moment, to where, wake up, take a risk in life. If it doesn't work, you can always come back to the restaurant. But what's going to happen if you don't take that chance? And I use that story a lot when I speak to people, because there's a lot of people that are on the fence. They're afraid. They have spouses that are telling them, yeah, let's do it. But then they have family members and other coworkers and other employees saying, are you crazy? You can't do that. That's too risky. So I love to use that story, because we've all been stuck in that situation where it's hard. It's really difficult, and it's a lonely decision. And you have a lot of people that don't want you to do it. And it's just a great aha moment story for me.
I think mine would be, I was trying to think of one as you're talking, to be honest.
She's zoned out again. You see that, everybody?
I didn't realize we were sharing stories.
Well, we want to give everyone an idea. Of
no, it's important. It really is the podcast. And I think because, it's one of those moments where, well, why would someone want to listen to what I have to say? And that's really a common thought that we have, because our experiences, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, but what I am is a mother, a wife. I have a lot of experience just in life and struggles, and that's where we all are. And I think that's why people are listening. It was probably a few months that we had this podcast, and I literally assumed nobody was listening. I did.
Well, there's 3 people listening.
Yeah, maybe a couple, and it's probably Jake, Whitney, Josh, maybe.
Josh, yes.
And we went to the MM3. It was your live event. And it was very strange because, I got a couple strange looks, and then eventually they came over and they whispered, "I just want to let you know I love your podcast." And it was really awkward because I'm like, "Oh my gosh, people are listening?" I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Well, thanks." I'm like, "Maybe we have a fourth listener."
Pressure's on.
And then it just kept coming. And I'm like, "Holy smokes." I'm like, "Wait a second." And then I kind of got nervous, I'm going to be honest, because now I'm like, all right, people are listening. I see faces. And now I'm talking to them. And now the pressure is seriously on.
So what changed? Why does the pressure have to be on when you think people are listening to you and when they're not listening to you? What's the difference? You're giving your all.
That's
anyway.
right. I agree with you. But now it's one of those moments where you're like, now I'm gonna let them down. I don't want to let them down. And I thought, okay, well, how about I just be myself? And what if we just are ourselves, our authentic selves, our real selves, because that's what people need. And, when we're not, people really do see through that. And what's the point of that? I struggle, and I want you all to know that, life is difficult. And I mean, sometimes it's just like, what the heck? I mean, there were times I remember being pregnant where I'm just like, this is not going to work out. So there are some serious struggles.
I knew it was going to work out.
Yeah,
I was feeling great.
You're always so good. That was a joke, by the way. We'll talk about that another day. My plan is to get my husband to have stories about our life.
Well, my wife wanted to talk about that with the kids. How about creating stories for your children?
Okay, so it's important that we have a friend who, this is actually a very creative idea, and I encourage other people, but he actually wrote a book for his children, self-published it on Amazon. And it was a story of his life. And he wanted his kids to know his thoughts and his emotions and his, just his, his life journey. And I thought, well, how beautiful that is, because so many of us, I wish, I wish I knew more about my grandfather, who had a very exciting life that I never really bothered to ask him, and so are we in that situation where we're not passing along our story to our children and so on, and they pass it along? And, you picture, I always picture like an older man in a rocking chair with a pipe, who is super wise and super amazing and super awesome. And that is from experience, life experience and knowledge and good judgment. That's what makes a person wise. And that's what my goal is to be, is that person.
Aren't I already that person?
Yes, you are.
I wish.
You don't smoke a pipe?
No,
though.
never.
Not yet.
So let me just go over the three elements. You want to get attention, you want the influence, and you want to transform the audience. I think that's really important. Try to create a founder story for yourself. This is if you're going into business and you're starting a business. The founder story is, and this is like if you're trying to raise capital, you're trying to start a business, you have to share these stories with people because they want to get to know you better. Why are they going to do business with you? People do business with others that they know, like, and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And giving those stories is going to build that trust with other people. And I think the purpose story is great. I have a purpose story. For me, being stuck at the restaurant and not being able to help others and not fulfilling, all the talents that God gave me, and that's almost felt like sinful, and I felt like I was letting my family down. So that's part of my purpose, is by helping other people and by really connecting other people and other families to live a better life together and to really enjoy the kids when they're younger and to enjoy them as they get older. That's part of my purpose also.
Yeah, the attention one is interesting because you want to relate with the person. And that goes back and forth, because when someone tells me a story, I do relate to them. And that's important for them to know that, because, I want to let them know that what they're telling me is also important. The influence one, for me, is different than Gino, obviously. When I see a family struggling, I encourage them. I'm like, listen, you're doing a great job. We are all so hard on ourselves, especially as parents. We're all messing up. We were just talking about that today. Sometimes I feel like I let my kids down, especially my son, who, maybe I should have pressured him a little bit more here and there. And we're always doing that, always. And, the kids would probably, maybe think differently. I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes we ask them, sometimes we don't, but just keep it up. If you're struggling, I promise you're doing the best you can. Just keep doing it. Keep it up. Get some, friends, talk to friends, have your spouse support you. It's so important that you just know that you're doing a good job. and then just take action. If you really are saying, you know what, I'm not doing a good job right now, then do it better. you know if you're not spending enough times with the kids, then spend more time with the kids. Sometimes we do say that to ourselves, as we're not doing a good job, but then we don't do anything about it, you know
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you want to do more with the kids, then do it. And I hold you accountable to that. Take action.
So as we're wrapping up, I just challenge everybody out there. Think of what your founder story is. Think of what your purpose story is, and think of an aha moment. Whether you're a parent and wow, it just clicked that this is how I have to do it. I don't have to be that hard. I should be a proactive parent instead of a reactive parent. What's the aha moment? And just create those stories and write them down and then use them when it's appropriate.
Yeah, that's why I do encourage, and this is new to me, but I do encourage some kind of journaling, some kind of, diary of some kind, just because we really do forget. And as the time goes by, I actually just reread some stuff from about 10 years ago, and I'm like, holy cow, I completely forgot about all that. And it's important to remember it because we do pass that along. And, it was our daughter's birthday, and she's 9. And so you remember when she was born, and you remember the struggles, and you could share them with the kids because you remember some of the things I had to remember from reading it. But it's important. So I encourage everyone just to write them down, keep them somewhere safe. Even if it's an actual story, an actual, talk about where you were, talk about the weather, talk about the littlest of situations, to later on in 10, 20 years from now, you can reread them and really get yourself back to there. And that's how you share your stories with others.
So some other tips to stories before we wrap it up. Tell the stories in the present. Pause when you're telling a story. If you can and you're speaking out, try to include the audience. Try to get people to raise their hands. Try to become interactive with them. My wife hates it when I do that. We always say by a show of hands. And
I wouldn't say I hate it.
Well, you want to include people if
Yes.
you're giving a presentation. If
Yes.
not, contrast.
You're pretty tough on me this morning.
Yeah, well, I got to be tough on you, making you stronger, right? Pressure makes diamonds, as they say.
Yes, so.
Contrast, keeping them off balance. I mean, do you expect me to be in the kitchen making chicken and grilling it and sauteing, and that stuff is off balance? And talking about a $10 an hour job and negotiating a $10 million deal, that's keeping people off balance. And one last thing, just remember, facts tell, stories sell. Let me say that again. Your facts will tell, your stories will sell.
If we're not happy, if we're not satisfied with our past stories, we have the opportunity to change the future ones. And I think that's really important, because part of that decision making and that moment where you're like, you know what, I'm going to change this and I'm going to go on a different path, is part of your story. The reason why you did it, maybe you were frustrated, maybe you were just in a bad situation that you wanted to get out. That is part of your story, and people need to hear that. And who was there to encourage you? Who was there telling you couldn't do it? All of that is part of it, because we all deal with that. All of us, we all have that in our life. And part of that is why we do things. And that's so important to remember all those things, the positive, the negatives, all of it.
Wow. I want to thank everyone for being part of the Jake and Gino family and just sharing part of your day with us.
Yes, so good to have you. And we were looking forward to meeting everyone. Someday that would be a dream.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have a favor for everyone. And I really would appreciate if maybe just an email, just even in the subject line of what you want to hear on the podcast, even if it's a 1-word email, I would love it. juliabarbaro@gmail.com, because we want to cater to you guys. We want to talk about what you want to hear. And I would love it if we just got an email from you, just letting us know.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.